I'm Victor Margiotta, and this is The Community Show. Thank you so much for watching. My guest today is Diane Wisla. She is a teacher's assistant in Somers, and just very blessed to have her on the show. And she's going to talk about her experience during COVID and teaching and helping the kids. So thank you, Diane, for coming on the show.
And thank you for having me, Victor.
You know, this is The Community Show, and, you know, it takes a community to raise children. And, you know, everybody really should, you know, I just read something about volunteering. And volunteering not only is good for your soul, but it's good for your body and your mind. And it's good for your career because it boosts your ability to, you know, deal with people better. And it's a great way to meet friends and, you know, get out there into the community. So I highly recommend volunteering. And actually, you're volunteering right now by sharing your experience with us. But I'd really love to talk about family because family is the cornerstone of society. And family is where children learn first, and they learn respect, and they learn how to be nice to people, and they learn, you know, how to love. And love, to me, encompasses everything. You know, if the dictionary had the definition of love, it would encompass so many things. And, you know, being kind is one of them. And let's talk about your family first. Where did you grow up?
Sure. I grew up in Mount Vernon back in I was born in the 50s, mid-50s. And we lived in Mount Vernon, New York for a while. And my dad was a caddy at Mohansic Golf Course up here and just absolutely fell in love with Yorktown. And he wanted to move here badly, and my mom was really against it. She liked to walk on the avenue, on 4th Avenue in Mount Vernon, to all the stores. And within 6 months, my dad found a house up here, and we were up here, and my mom got used to it. It took her a while. And I have 2 sisters. And you talk about family. I mean, family to me, I grew up in an Italian household, and a lot of different nationalities believe it's strong family. And I'm very blessed, you know, to have a good family. And I loved growing up in Yorktown. I loved it. Even though I was sad, I was in 1st grade when we moved. I really enjoyed being in the suburbs, and I had wonderful friends. And, you know, the first thing that you said tonight, Victor, was volunteering. And it made me think that in school, it's not only teachers and administrators and staff, but the families are such an important aspect of it. And altogether, that's what makes a school successful. Yeah. So true. It is. It's a whole, everybody teaches the children.
I just remembered a story. You know, we grew up in an Italian family and 10 kids, and you know, it was a lot of love.
Yes.
And you know, I used to kiss my father all the time, and you know, we all did. But the one time I went to get on the bus, and I'm in the car, and I said, "Don't do it, don't do it," and I couldn't help it. We pulled up behind the bus. You know, it was a wrestling match, so I was getting on the bus, and I couldn't help it. I reached over, I gave my dad a kiss. I got on the bus, and the whole bus was all, But I didn't feel, you know, ashamed or anything. I love my father, and, you know, that's one of those things.
It was very natural.
It was.
Right,
and
right.
Like I said, I tried not to do it, but I couldn't help it.
Oh, that's so funny.
So you teach in Somers. You teacher's assistant.
I am. I'm a teaching assistant in Somers. I'm there 15 years. Prior to that, I was in Yorktown as a substitute teacher and a teaching assistant. And then prior to that, I was a co-director of a preschool in Yorktown for 5 years. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of wonderful memories of all different grades. I actually love the middle school years the best because I feel like they're still young enough that we can have an influence on them. And then, like, when they get to high school, they want to be very independent. So we still have a little bit of a control, not a control, but like an influence on them.
The art of asking for what you want. You know, a lot of times the kids, you know, they want something, but they don't know how to ask, you know. And, you know, growing up, My father was very strict. And he hated when you said, what? Like he'd ask you something and you said, what? And it, excuse me? You know, so you had to say, excuse me?
Right.
You know, but politely, you know what I
Yes.
mean? So, you know, what do you think is a good way to maybe tell the kids how to ask for what they want, you know?
Well, I think today kids are very, they are open to asking, you know, they feel very comfortable talking. It's not like the old days, okay? Teachers and teaching assistants are very accessible. And whatever they want to talk about, we encourage them. We have this little class in school called Advisory, and we have 12 students that we get to meet with once a week, and we get very close with them. You know, they feel comfortable coming to us, and exactly that's the relationship we're trying to build, so that they feel, you know, like if there's something bothering them, they can come to us, or we can tell them where to go if they need something. This year with COVID has been very different. You know, prior to this year, you know, kids were walking around the hallway. If they saw you, they might have a question. And, you know, today everything is much more regimented. You know, you have to be at a certain place at a certain time. And in the beginning of the year, the students weren't even moving around. We were moving around.
Yeah.
But then after that, well, just this month, they were all back, you know, together, and they can walk around from class to class. So it's a little different this year, but prior to the COVID, you know, virus, they had accessibility to all of us, and they felt very comfortable coming to all of us. So there's a lot of programs that are set up that make it easy. So
Good. You know, growing up, I was blessed to be in a big family, and we'd have family parties, and there'd be everybody from an infant to a 90-year-old person. And, you know, everybody was happy, you know, so I never felt like, you know, age had a you know, influence on whether you're going to be happy or not. You know, you're going to be happy no matter what. And as long as, you know, happiness comes from within, and, you know, you have to make yourself happy, you know?
yes.
Tell us about your family, you know, especially now being a grandmother.
Oh, wow. That's the best thing that ever happened to us. I have a daughter and a son, and we have 2 grandchildren, and I cannot wait to spend more time with them, but as much as I can, it's great because I teach here. They live in the middle, and I live here. So I just have to kind of go by their house every day after school, and I usually stop. But yeah, that's definitely number one on our happiness level.
Yeah.
And you know, I have an elderly mom now, 91 years old, and she's not well. And my sister and I, you know, my sisters and I take care of her, and that actually makes us feel good.
Yeah.
Because she gave us so much.
Well, that's the thing.
And now we're able to give it back to her, you know.
Yeah.
So, and we did it because of the virus, you know. We really didn't want, you know, anyone coming in that, and we wanted to do it ourselves.
Sure.
So, because we weren't sure, you know,
Right.
if everybody was safe.
Yeah. I was very lucky to be able to help my parents out, you know, in their last couple of years. And like you said, you're just giving back what they gave you.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
and it's such a great feeling, you know.
It is.
And it's, you know, that's.
And I'm lucky to have my sisters to help me.
Yeah,
with it, too.
that's another
If I were
thing.
by myself, it might be a little harder.
Yeah, it would
but-
be too much.
Yeah, so
For sure.
family is important in that
Yeah.
sense.
Definitely. Now, a friend of mine who's a teacher was telling me about a lot of the things, like now those plastic dividers. They're going to start taking those down at the schools.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the difficulty of handing out papers and trying to get kids, you know, a lot of them start doodling on these things so you can't see them behind the...
And they make an incredibly loud noise. Like
Yeah.
I've bumped into them a couple of times, and it's like, boom. But they're good. But I see a couple of problems with them. I see that, yeah, it's true that, you know, kids are going around it, and also we have these wonderful new big TVs, you know, and it's a little blurry to see them. It's a difficulty with
Yeah, that's the other thing he
Yes.
mentioned, that the
Yes.
reflection of the
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been pretty safe in my school. We've been open since September.
Awesome.
And, listen, we've been quarantined a couple of times, and, we do the contact tracing, but it really has worked out very well this year. They had plenty of staff, and they hired a lot of extra teaching assistants because that's how we did this in the beginning. We split the classroom in half. There were only 12 students or 10, whatever it was, in each class, and the teacher was here, and the teaching assistant was in another classroom, and then we all went on the Zoom, and we all got the lesson, and yet there was an adult in the room to help the students in my room and a teacher in this room, and then we'd switch. So it really worked out, but it was tough.
Yeah. Well, you hear so much about reading to your children at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't understand you, just the whole hearing words, hearing sentences, even at a young age, to start early.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Well, I mean, I can't even tell you how important that is when you start out young and they don't even know what you're doing, but you're reading words on a book. And then they grow up to love hearing stories, and they love reading books. It becomes a family gathering, a nighttime ritual, wherever and whenever you do it. Make a fort in the living room and have a library. I've seen my grandson do that. And it's so important because you have to teach, somehow you have to teach children to love reading.
Right.
Because it's knowledge. It's everything, words, figurative language. I actually teach Ais Literacy, and that's Academic Intervention Services. And it's for students that may be struggling with, and the best thing that we can do for a child, especially a middle school child, it's great when they read independently, but it's even better when we read them a book. And I don't care. I mean, it usually stops after 8th grade. But when we read a book together as a class, and it's wonderful, and the kids love it because we can use expression, and then we let them read, and they learn from us. It's a little difficult to do that remotely, but now that they're back, we're picking up right where we left off, and we're going right back to the novels. So, and reading, as a group together. So. And
you mentioned that you'd like to cook. If there was something in the book about a certain food or something that you would...
It's so true. What I miss the most about reading a novel with the class is that we would have a reading celebration, and this is my thing, I would cook all the food that was in the book, and we'd make like a little, buffet, and the kids loved it because they actually put themselves right in the novel and said, "Oh yes, this is what the character ate," and it was great, But we can't do that right now, so I miss that aspect of it.
Yeah, moving forward, we'll get back to normal.
I hope so. Yes.
And for myself, I wasn't a good reader. But when a book was read, like you said, in class, I could remember the teacher reading a whole book to us.
Sure.
And I could remember every word, because I was a good listener, I guess. Right. And to this day, people tell me that's why they like me, because I'm a good listener. I'll remember what they said the next time I see them, and they'll be like, "Well, you remember I said that?" And yes.
Wonderful.
But
the thing is with that, when a child struggles in reading, they may not understand the whole, like all the words, and they may not tell us that. But we'll stop in the middle of reading and we'll explain, or if it's something that took place in the 1920s, they have no idea what happened then. So that's the beauty of reading out loud to a student, is that, or if they have any questions, they're like, "Mrs. Wisla, what does that mean? What was that?" And it makes a big difference when they can fully understand what's happening in a novel than if they read, because I think some students might miss some understanding, comprehension.
Well, even to this day, they say, make sure you have a dictionary.
Right.
So when you're reading, all you have to do, if there's a word that comes up that you don't understand, just
Look it up.
Yeah, just look it up.
Well,
and
now
then,
all they have to do is Google
yeah,
it. So.
I know. Well, that's even, some of the stuff that I Googled for the interview to be prepared,
Sure, so easy.
Yeah.
We had World Book encyclopedias.
Yeah, I know. I can remember. The other thing is, though, that you think, oh, I don't have to know anything because all I have to do is Google it. So there is, there's always two sides to every story.
Yes.
So, and what are some suggestions for parents to help their kids, if they are struggling?
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I guess what you said, getting back to reading with them, there's nothing wrong with that, even in the middle school years. There's nothing wrong with reading a novel together. As a matter of fact, it's funny. Barnes & Noble the other day had a sale. I walked in, and one of my favorite novels to read is Call of the Wild by Jack London. And they had a leather-bound, of course they came out with a movie this year with Harrison Ford, I think, was the actor. And I didn't even want to go see it because I love the book and I didn't want the movie to ruin it. But they had a leather-bound special edition Call of the Wild. And I bought one for several people, but I bought one for my grandchildren. And I'm holding it aside when they're age appropriate so that I can read that book to them because I've read it to so many children. And it's my favorite. And as a matter of fact, I went to California a couple of years back, and we went to Jack London's estate there, and we went horseback riding, and it was just so cool to be there because I love him as a an author, a writer.
Right. I had my friend Karen Mayo, who is a nutritionist, and she's studying brain health now. And it's so important to eat right, exercise, have a good social activity, and, eating right as far as with your kids. What do you suggest?
So I think that kids today are eating better.
Oh, good.
Okay, I actually do. I mean, maybe not for everyone, but back when I was young, it was when all the processed foods just started coming out, and it was so convenient, boxed macaroni and cheese and, all this stuff that had a lot of chemicals and preservatives.
Yeah.
But I look at my daughter, who's a school teacher also, and she taught in the Bronx for several years, and now she's a full-time mom. She is very aware of what she makes homemade. Well, she learned from me. I like to make homemade things too, but she cooks very healthy for her children.
Nice.
And I see a lot of kids in school eating. I mean, it's convenient to put junk food in their lunchbox. That's a convenience, but I do see a lot of kids eating healthier these days. There's more choices out there than we had when I think there's like shakes and a lot of products now have less sugar.
That's the key, though, is the sugar.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And thank God they took soda out of the schools.
Oh yes.
That was.
Yep. They have flavored seltzer now, which is really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is better. But
yeah, I can't tell you that I see a lot of bad eating habits.
That's great. Your daughter actually set up a little in-home school for your
Yeah, well, my grandson was starting kindergarten this year, and we were both crying because this is not the way, they were remote for a long time, and we were very sad that he was starting kindergarten in the dining room. But the teacher that she is, the wonderful teacher that she is, she totally tore down that dining room, and there are posters and artwork all over. And my husband refinished a desk for Luke, and the little one, who's under 2, she was also doing remote learning too. She didn't, the teacher didn't realize she was off to the side, but she was attending dance and music and art and trying to learn math at the same time. But it's what parents had to do this year.
Yeah.
And thank goodness she was a stay-at-home mom. I don't really know how everyone handled the younger age kids that worked, that had to be on their business meetings at the same time. It was a difficult time, but it's getting back. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm not married. I don't have kids, but I do know that this, pandemic has affected a lot of people emotionally too. the eating habits and, the other things like that, and not being able to go out and socialize.
Yeah, I think socialization is so important for everyone, more important for kids. I used to go into school when we had K through 6 in my school in every day, and then 7 and 8 were hybrid. But I made it my goal in September to try to make the kids happy and try to make them, even if I had to do a song and a dance in the hallway and like, oh, Mrs. Wisla, really?
Yeah.
And they'd look at me through, they had their mask on, but I could tell that they were smiling underneath. But they need to socialize. Kids need to be in school. I can't agree.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, I can't tell you how happy these kids are to be in school now, because we have everybody in, K through 8. I'm 6, 7, and 8. And they're thrilled. They look at their friends and they're happy to go outside. Yeah. Today was a beautiful day, and we had a team time last period of the day. And I said, "That's it. Let's go. Pack it up. Take your backpack," which is now their locker, because they're not using lockers yet. Yeah. And we were outside, and they were singing, and they were, it was just wonderful to see because they've missed each other.
Yeah. We talked about rules and regulations. And there's guidelines you have to follow. There's no doubt about it. And structure is very important. I was lucky to be able to teach religious instructions for my church for years. And my example about right and wrong and, the 10 Commandments was it's just like a baseball team. If you didn't have rules, if there weren't, 3 strikes, you're out. Or, if you get tagged out, you're out. Or, if you hit it over the fence, it's a home run. These are the rules that you follow. And if there weren't rules, then it would be anarchy. There'd just be people running around. Yes. It wouldn't be considered a game,
Sure.
So what are some of the things that, you instill about as far as following the rules?
Well, we've always had rules, okay? But they've changed a little, the social distancing when we're walking down the hall. The thing... one of the rules is no hoods, no hats in school. And the kids, I have to tell you, they're just so grateful to be back to school that I don't think they have a problem with the rules at this point.
That's good, yeah.
It might change next year when the rules start to go away, but there have not been any discipline actions at all, hardly at all this year.
That's great.
Because kids were frightened. They had a little fear. That if they did something, it might cause somebody to get the virus or whatever. But so they were very well behaved. But spring is here, and the rules are, getting lifted in some sense. So, so we might have some discipline problems at the end of the year, but I don't think so. Maybe with the 8th graders that are going on to high school. But in general, I think, I can't think of any, except for the social distancing and like going to the ladies' room and in the men's room. You have to only one at a time, and so those are the kind of rules that we're talking about right now, but not a lot of disciplinary action.
That's great. I, the exercise for me was lucky again to, be active. I had 8 older brothers, so we always played, and I didn't really. We had friends, but it wasn't like, I need to have a friend, because I always had someone to play with, And exercise was always, a given. To this day, I still, if I don't stretch out and do some kind of exercise, I don't feel right, So, even for yourself, what are you doing to try and stay fit?
Well, unfortunately, I live in a local complex, and they closed the gym. And my husband was going every single day. And I went as much as I could. I don't have a lot of free time. My husband's retired, so he had more time than I did. And the sad part is I wanted to get back into it. I wanted to get it. And but we've been walking a lot.
That's good.
Trying to get fresh air, sunshine for the vitamin D.
Yes.
And that's about all I do right now. Actually, I'm lying. I did hire a trainer to come and get me started again a couple of times. Yes. I met him at the track, and he helped me. It's actually a co-worker of mine, and he was wonderful. But, I think everybody where I live is waiting for that gym to open up again. And I think they're pretty upset about it because it's something that we really need to do to stay healthy. So.
And basically what they say is 3 times a week, 20-minute walk.
Yeah, not a lot.
No. And like you said, being outside is a good thing.
Yes.
Nature, now especially.
Yeah.
For me, I love to garden. So I have my friend, he's going to bring me the tiller later. We have to go to his house. We got to dig it out of the garage.
Great.
And I wound up buying some plants. I can't put them out yet because it's not time.
Oh no, I think it's going to get cold again this week.
Yeah, that's the thing. It only took me one time to put plants out too early, and I lost them.
Oh, yeah.
And those
you
were
learned.
Yeah, you learn your lesson. And they were all plants that I started from seed. So that was even worse, because that was a lot of work.
Yes.
So what I do now, I just actually started my butternut squash.
Oh.
So I'll have the butternut squash. Believe it or not, we just ran out a few weeks ago. I had 40 squash from last year's garden.
You're kidding.
Yeah, but it is a lot, but I had 26 plants. Now, to space out 26 squash plants, you got to have a lot of room, for one.
Sure.
And you got to set them up just right, But the other thing was the squash blossoms.
Oh.
I think you might have had them.
You did. I came here one time.
Yeah, and we had them.
I loved them.
Yes,
they're my
they're delicious.
favorite.
Oh my gosh. So the problem was last year, we didn't have a lot of people in the restaurant, and I was picking 50 of these blossoms a day. So needless to say, I was eating a lot of squash blossoms.
So good.
They're delicious.
Yeah.
They almost taste like eggplant.
Yes. And you deep fry. I think they were deep
fried. Yeah.
So good.
And also you could stuff them. What I was doing was cooking some zucchini and onions and stuffing them with that, and then breading them. And so what I'm trying to get to is gardening is a great feeling too. To get out in the yard.
It is.
Even if you just plant flowers, do some work in the yard.
Yeah. We go over now and help my daughter because we're in a complex, so they limit us as to what we can plant. But my husband and I totally enjoy going over to my daughter's house and helping them. They haven't done a vegetable garden yet, but I think that my grandson is actually talking about it. So I think we'll do that this year. Yeah. When I was growing up in Mount Vernon, my grandparents had a house, beautiful old house there, Victorian home, and a small yard, but big enough. And he came directly from he was from Naples.
Wow.
And he was a tailor, but his hobby was gardening, and he had grapes, and he made wine in his basement. And we still don't know what happened to the press. We wish we knew, but because one of us would like to have it. But he had peaches and apple trees and every single thing that you can think of, every vegetable, tomatoes, you name it. And they ate that all summer long.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I love it. People always tell me, why don't you bring it to the farmer's market? I said, farmer's market? I said, I'm eating this stuff myself.
It's too good.
It is. It's delicious. And you put the fresh basil and the tomatoes. And, they always say, it's an Italian thing or whatever. It's a people thing.
It is.
You know what I mean? Even like I said about kissing my father, that's a family thing. You want to call it Italian, okay, but
I love that we can pass this down. My daughter and son, they love traditions. And they love to hear stories still to this day. As a matter of fact, my daughter is talking to my mom, who's 91, and trying to get the history from her too, so that she can carry that forward.
Yes.
Yeah. It's important.
And that's what community, it is the community show. And, that's what community is all about. Like I said, my friend has a tiller. I have a relationship with him. I've known him my whole life. And, me and him are going to get together and I'm going to borrow his tiller. So
fun.
This is what it's all about, getting to know your community and getting involved.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It was really fun. Thank you, Victor.
I'm glad. I'm Victor Margiotta. Thank you for watching. This is The Community Show, and I urge you to volunteer and get involved in the community. Thank you.